Okay, in the last video, which was like 30 minutes long video, we talked about all of this introductory material. We talked about the different components of the circulatory system. We talked about open and closed circulatory systems. We talked about the types of vessels. We talked about single circulation, double circulation, and the different numbers of chambers in different vertebrates' hearts. So now we're going to focus more specifically on mammalian circulation. So that will be double circulation, and we're going to talk about both the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit. So remember that for mammals, we have lungs. So the pulmonary circuit is going to go straight to the lungs, and the purpose is for deoxygenated blood to be pumped from the heart into the lungs, where the blood can gain oxygen and then pump back to the heart. So that's basically the entire pulmonary circuit. So if we talk about this specifically, what happens is we're going to start here with the right ventricle. And remember, the right and left are reversed from the way you're looking at them because you're supposed to be thinking of the organism sort of laying on its back, belly up. Okay, so from the organism's right and left. So this would be the organism's right ventricle. There it is, down here. Okay, so the right ventricle pumps deoxygenated blood. Remember, the deoxygenated blood is usually identified as blue in the figure. So deoxygenated blood goes up from the right ventricle and goes into the right pulmonary artery or the left pulmonary artery. Okay, so it can go to either the right or the left lung through the pulmonary artery. Remember that arteries carry blood away from the heart. Okay, so the pulmonary artery is carrying blood away from the heart and into the lungs. Okay, the pulmonary artery is going to break up into arterioles. Remember that smaller branches of the arteries are arterioles. And then from the arterioles, it's going to branch into the capillary beds. Okay, and that will happen on either the right or the left lung. Okay, so once the capillary beds have the blood in them within the lungs, oxygen is going to come into the blood within the capillaries, and carbon dioxide is going to leave the blood. And so basically what happens is the gas exchange that occurs in the right and the left lung through those capillary beds is going to result in deoxygenated blood with a lot of carbon dioxide in it going into the lung. And the blood coming out of the lung is going to have a lot of oxygen in it and not much carbon dioxide. Okay, so then the oxygen-rich blood, which is indicated by red, is going to return through the right or the left pulmonary vein. Remember, veins carry blood to the heart. So the pulmonary veins are going to carry blood into the left atrium of the heart. And now you can see that the blood is highly oxygenated because it's just been through the lungs and did gas exchange there. The systemic circuit is essentially the opposite. Well, it's not exactly the opposite, but it's moving the oxygenated blood around the body so that the cells of the body can use the oxygen in the blood. And they can also give carbon dioxide to the blood so that it will eventually go back through the lungs and be able to get rid of that carbon dioxide. So for the systemic circuit, we have oxygen-rich blood flowing into the left ventricle. Okay, so here, the numbers of this are labeled a little bit differently. Okay, so the oxygen-rich blood flows into the left ventricle from the pulmonary circuit, right? So we have the pulmonary circuit blood right here into the left ventricle, and then the oxygenated blood is going to flow out of the left ventricle into capillary beds that are throughout the body. So some of them are going to go to capillaries in the head and the forelimbs. Some of them are going to go into the capillaries of abdominal organs or hind limbs. So essentially blood will flow to all of the different capillary bloods of the body. And the vessel that they leave out of the heart through is called the aorta. Okay, so you can see here the aorta is the artery that carries blood out of the heart, away from the heart, and it's going to go into these additional arteries, which you don't need to worry about what the names of those are, and then into arterioles and capillary beds in the different parts of the body. And once the blood passes through one capillary bed, it's going to return into venules and into veins, and then it is going to return to the heart, through the vena cava. Okay, so if it's coming from the bottom part of the body, it's called the inferior vena cava. And if this deoxygenated blood now is coming from the top of the body, it's going to enter the heart through the superior vena cava. Okay, this right here is your right atrium. And so this is the part that is going to receive the deoxygenated blood. And from the right atrium, blood will then move into the right ventricle. And the cycle will start over because from here, the deoxygenated blood gets pumped into the pulmonary circuit. So if we want to just reiterate some of that, let's start right here like this figure actually wants us to start. We're going to start with the right ventricle, deoxygenated blood that needs to go through the pulmonary circuit. It's going to leave out through here into the pulmonary arteries, which go away from the heart, and into arterioles and the capillary bed within the lungs, where the deoxygenated blood loses its carbon dioxide and gains oxygen. And then it's going to return to the heart into the left atrium via the pulmonary vein. Okay, pulmonary vein into the left atrium, the oxygenated blood now. Now it's going to move into the left ventricle, and it's going to get pumped into or through the systemic circuit, which will either go to the bottom part of the body or the top part of the body, but initially leaving the left atrium the left ventricle through the aorta. The aorta then is going to diverge into arteries. And if we follow this one up here in the systemic circuit, the blood is going to move through a capillary bed. It's going to lose its oxygen to the cells that need it. It's going to gain carbon dioxide from the cells that are trying to get rid of carbon dioxide. And again, the blood passes through one capillary bed before it gets moved to venules and veins, and eventually into either the superior vena cava or the inferior vena cava, which is going to direct the blood into the right atrium, deoxygenated blood into the right atrium, which moves into the right ventricle, and then it's going to move. Then we start over, and it moves into the pulmonary circuit. Pulmonary circuit is deoxygenated blood gets oxygenated in the lungs, and the systemic circuit is oxygenated blood basically gets deoxygenated when it gives up its oxygen and gains carbon dioxide from the capillary beds in all the different parts of the body. And here's a quick summary of some of that. It's not as detailed as what I went through just a second ago.
In mammals, blood pumped by the right side of the heart passes through the lungs and enters the left side of the heart. This is the pulmonary circuit. Blood pumped by the left side of the heart is distributed to the other body organs and returns to the right side of the heart. This is the systemic circuit. This pattern, called double circulation, ensures vigorous blood flow to the organs because the heart pumps the blood a second time after it returns from the lungs.
Okay, so that's the end of that one. I told you it was going to be a lot shorter. None of them are going to be as long as that first one.